Hey everybody, it's Nico with more amazing content being brought to you by the amazing people at NYCC, Read Pop, Find the Metaverse, and sponsored by LGBTHQ. And today, I am so happy to be moderating this panel. I've been lucky to be a part of this super cool podcast for a couple of weeks now, but it's been going years longer than me. So this is the cast of, well, you know what, let me introduce them and they can take care of it. Joey, Joe 2, you guys want to set this thing up?
Yes, hello. We are the hosts of Too Fast, Too Forever, the Fast and the Furious podcast, which started monthly and now is twice a week, which is honestly too much Fast and Furious, really. But there's a lot more to talk about than the cars.
Yeah, we started this out as just like a crazy project, trying to see if we would ever get sick of watching these movies, and it turns out we haven't yet. So yeah, we're 7 laps deep and keep going.
Well, and I've been lucky enough to be pulled in. As a matter of fact, you guys might notice that I'm cosplaying Dom. And
then, we got the Dom voice early. I love that.
Oh, yeah.
I love that we got it very early in this. Yeah.
Now, I'm lucky enough to be part of this current lap with my amazing husband, Kevo. Hey, Kevo.
Hey, Kevo.
So we are continuing a grand tradition of amazing guests on this show. So I would like to thank returning guest Rachel, who's actually been part of the show before. Hey, Rachel.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Because, I mean, I think what I was most mind blown about with this franchise was specifically how much better I thought women were treated than I guess I thought they'd be, Rachel. Like, can you speak to that as a woman watching these movies? How does it feel to get the representation of Letty's strength, or I guess Mia's mostly competence?
Well, it's funny because you can see it happen as the movies progress as well, too. Like, the first movie kind of starts out and you get either badass in Letty or like
there's food all over the place.
Yeah. Like, I can drive a little bit, but like I'm not as tough as Letty is. And then it just progresses into this amazing thing, and eventually you get a female villain, which is awesome.
And I can't speak enough about how much I love Giselle, but that's way ahead of the curve here. And speaking of things that took time to get there, Kevo, I think one of the things that I remember you saying early on in the episodes that we were a part of was the queer inclusion was a little bit more than expected. I mean, the homoeroticism is bar none, but the queer inclusion.
Well, and something that you have to consider with this is the fact that the franchise is pretty old now. It started in 2001. So when somebody lets the fag word slip, I'm like, all right, it's a product of the era. But as this franchise has continued to move forward, they've been a lot better about equally representing genders, and the cartoon spin-off Spy Racers is very surprisingly queer for a children's cartoon. So it's pretty exciting the way that it's developed.
And I actually really love their use of a very inclusive cast of actors, and their inclusive cast of actors on top of that, in not just terms of people of color and the amazing voice work there from recognizable actors from things like Hamilton and Community. I was almost like,
Community.
Popular?
Pop.
But Pop, that's the problem. I was like, popular.
That's what you're thinking, Pop.
But Tyler Posey has been an outspoken advocate for his queer fan base, and I almost cosplayed Tony. So it was which Toretto was I going to go with? So
this one's easier.
Back to the heart of the panel. When you guys pulled us into this, I was not expecting what I got in Fast and the Furious, because I think I was expecting a pretty long Hot Wheels trailer, and what I got was a pretty long Hot Wheels trailer with hints of Olive Garden. And so I think what I want to know, Joe 2, what made you guys say there is something in this franchise as early as that first movie?
Well, I came to it really late. I came into it a decade into the franchise. I was kind of like you. I was like, oh, I don't need to watch the car movies. I get it. I don't, whatever. And then how did this get made? A podcast that I love, and I try to emulate both directly and indirectly. They covered the 5th one, but not because it's bad, because it's crazy and fun and over the top. And I was like, oh my God, like they paid such reverence and respect to it. And I was just on board from that moment. And then Joe and I ran through an entire podcast about Zac Efron's movies. Go check it out.
Yeah.
But then we were like, what if we only watched good movies? Like, what if we watched movies that we liked? And we're like, what could we do? And we just settled on this. And like, it's bloomed and blossomed in a way that I don't think we could have expected.
No.
Joe too.
Yeah. I started at the movies because I was a 12-year-old boy when the first one came out, and I wanted to see a cool car movie. And then you stick around with them, and you see that they grow as I grew, and it was just like a really cool thing. So I think that us as a team try to promote them, that there's something for everyone here. And like you were saying, you know, you didn't think that this might have been for you, but we really try to pitch that there is something for you in these. It's not just a car movie about, you know, driving around fast. So that's what
It's also about driving around furious.
Yes, exactly.
It is certainly about driving around furious as well.
But what I love about this, just real quick, is that each lap we have different guests on, and like having you guys on here for the first time, watching this for the first time, and bringing your perspective as your, you know, your media literate selves, and both in franchises on your podcast, and like all the intelligence and perspective that you're bringing is open. Like, we're learning new things through you guys. So it's not just that you're seeing these for the first time. We're learning what you guys think about these, and I think that's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of the magic of the beautiful mess that is the Fast and the Furious. You know, Rachel, you were just saying before that first movie has so little female inclusion, and I actually think there might be more women in the background without names than there are named women.
Half naked, like no named extras. There's way more of those.
Making out with each other, of course.
A lot of, go! You know, a lot of,
But see, some of that is fun. You got to keep some of that. But yeah, it's really nice to watch it evolve and change, and like then you start getting more women like at the core of the family. I mean, it's not to say that there's not more that they should be doing or can be doing or will be doing. So I mean, we got to get that all female movie, and then I'll be happy.
I'm pretty sure I might have heard something about a Letty Led spinoff, so I'm pretty jazzed. Now, Kevo, I know you touched on the fact that they, you know, kind of used a bit of a gay slur in the first movie. What kept you going through that, other than commitment to the podcast that would make us look bad if we backed out on?
Well, it wasn't the second movie, but when we got to Fast and Furious and I saw that it really was developing with the times, and, you know, the female characters were really starting to step it up. I remember from, I think it was, is it 4, 5, or 5, 6, the characters? Yes, 4, 5, the characters of Tego, Leo, and Rico Santos.
Mm-hmm.
How we had discussed that they could really be read as queer-coded in a similar way to those characters from Star Wars Rogue One, where it's not explicit, but like there's definitely the interpretation there. And that really intrigued me, the way that they didn't go out of their way to over-heterosexualize those characters, which is something that happens to a lot of characters in these franchises for no reason. They just needlessly slap it all on.
Just be real straight. Be real straight. But,
yeah.
Speaking of that second movie that I'm really glad you got a slight jab in, as you know, as a Cuban man, you know, it really is important to see a lot more diversity. And also as a fan of 90s R&B jams, it's really important for me to see Tyrese inclusion.
Yeah.
And so this second movie, Fast and Furious, Let's All Attack Miami Real Fast, was definitely, I was not prepared for it. And it took the franchise in a very different direction. And Joey, that was one of the things you tried to prepare me for, to understand that the movies are a dynamic, not static endeavor.
Yeah, and I think with the second and the third movie with Tokyo Drift, like Kevo just brought up Rogue One, but we spent a lot of time on the podcast with you guys talking about how like Too Fast and Tokyo Drift are kind of like Rogue One and Solo. Like they're canon, but they're not really canon. Like they're kind of standalone stories. And so they take good parts. And, you know, Kevo mentioned, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but the fourth one, like the reboot, the restart, whatever you want to call it, I think they take the best parts of those movies and take characters they like, get rid of the rest, and just, but there's good stuff in there that is like, hey, we're going to try something new. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But if it does work, hey, cool, it'll stick around.
Good.
Who's supposed to go?
Did we freeze?
Oh, I guess we might have lost Nico. But Joe, if you want to talk about Too Fast, I know you love Too Fast.
I'm a big fan of Too Fast, and that one's a great one for us because that's the one that John Singleton directed.
Mm-hmm.
So they brought in, you know, a director that we wouldn't normally see or think about doing a movie like this, and he brings along Tyrese from Baby Boy, and he just like the movie's just dripping Miami, and like that, like the cool neon soak that everything's in is something that I really liked about Too Fast.
Ava Mendes.
And Ava Mendes.
And Ava Mendes, obviously.
She's one of the best parts.
I think
Yeah,
it really early on showed the potential for the franchise to go in so many different directions and have so many options. And by only having Paul Walker in that one and a cameo from Vin Diesel in the next one, it shows that there can be connective tissue without it having to be, all so connected all the time.
Yeah. And speaking of the next one, let's talk about Tokyo Drift for a second. Nico, we just talked about Too Fast, but now we're on to Tokyo Drift, which is one that you guys did not really care for.
I mean, it felt like it's okay for an entity or a property to go to another country and pay tribute to the quality of the culture, right? And by quality, I don't mean the goodness or badness of the culture, and okay, so it talked about the quality of the culture. And I think part of what's really important with that is understanding that if you're going to go to another culture, you have to be respectful of it. And Tokyo Drift felt a little bit like an intrusion. It felt a little bit like we're going to drive through Tokyo and not really respect and understand the culture the way I've come to understand that the films are able to with when they go to Rio. It's a little bit more like we're in Rio as opposed to like, haha, check out this backdrop. It's you can't just green screen in a country, and that's not culture. And so that was my big problem with Tokyo Drift. That said, I keep forgetting not Brian's name. Sean.
Yeah.
Yes.
Speaking of connective tissue, Sean showing up elsewhere was lovely.
Yeah, and I think that what's important with Tokyo Drift, and Joe, you can talk about this too a little bit, is that we got Justin Lin. He comes in here and establishes the visual style, the directorial style, and really what these movies feel like. And it's cool that he's a man of color. Like he's, in a position of power that is traditionally dominated by white men. And to have basically the voice and the face and like the literal director of your franchise be an Asian man is awesome.
Yeah, and he's like continued it on. So he did 3, 4, 5, and 6, and then he left for 7 and 8, and now he's coming back to finish the franchise as well. So I mean, like his staying power is as great as the franchise was, but you really see in 3 that he starts putting his influence into the films, and they really start to move that way. So I attribute a lot of the growth from them to him specifically.
And, I really love that you're bringing up that Justin Lin came in and sort of dramatically transformed the franchise. I do think we saw a stronger voice from women starting with Tokyo Drift. And Rachel, watching the rise of women behind the wheel, like, because that's a thing for me. Like, I need to see the women driving. Just give them the car, right? Because if women are known for being minivan moms, right, that we're putting a lot of power behind the wheel, right? We're giving women really big, so let's honor it, okay? Yeah. So even if you want to be sexist and horrible, women know how to drive. They can maneuver a minivan. I can't.
Definitely.
So
I learned how to drive on a minivan, but I can drive other stuff too.
Right. And so talk to me about how it felt watching women go from the bucket seat next to the driver to in charge and driving.
Oh, it's awesome. I love seeing it. I love seeing them kick a guy's ass in a race. It's awesome. I wish I could do that. And it's nice to see that like there are people out there who can do it. So like it's who's to say that I wouldn't be able to one day,
I can't drive for shit, so I'm sure you could kick my ass in a race, no problem. So
I do have a little bit of a lead foot, but
a leady foot, as it were.
Now,
Now, you guys had promised me that with Fast and the Furious, I was going to start with car movies, and I was going to end up with something akin to basically Transformers without the cars people. They're just people with cars. And, I kind of didn't believe you. And then 4, 5, 6 marked a severe departure in format and sort of a new something else. Like The Rock added a certain infusion, not of just men of color, which was desperately needed, and not just for someone to kind of up the stakes on Dom, but it added a layer of depth to the films by giving this family an outside factor. And I think this was the rise of, when you're driving your family. Do you want to talk a little bit about the core of this movie being like family, and this is where the, that took hold?
Yeah, I think that as the O'Connor family grows and the Toretto O'Connor share a household, they're no longer two houses alike in dignity, whatever. They're now shared by the bond between Mia. Like, there is truly a sense of family, not only blood family, but found family here too.
That's what we love. Yeah, I love that about it too, that that's something that we also like to show in the movies, is that it shows you that family isn't just who you're related to by blood, and you can make your own family by the friends that you have and the people that are in your circle. And that is really meaningful to a lot of people that might not have, a distinct bloodline family that they hang out with all the time, right? It's who you build your life around.
So in that way, you're saying that. Now, I know we've discussed it on the show a little bit too, so I'm kind of connecting some things. So guys, if you want to hear a little bit more, you should check out the show. It's super fun. But one of the things we've talked about on the show, and now here we're saying this idea of found family, and you define who your world is. You can always find a home. And I think that's part of what Gen Z, Gen Y, Gen X, this, whatever, millennials, whatever we are anymore. I don't care. We're alphabet soup and it's beautiful. I think that's something that they're searching for. And I wonder if that's part of why it connects with this generation. Kevo, as somebody who does not see a lot of queer people represented in action movies, I feel like while we're not getting queer representation in 4, 5, 6 in overt ways, we are seeing a softer kind of man arrive as well, whether it's in Roman's intentional softness at times, or it's in the form of Brian and Dom's ability to basically love up on each other. Right? How do you feel about the portrayal of masculinity and queerness in the idea of Fast and the Furious as the franchise evolves?
I really have appreciated that, actually. Men don't really have problems showing affection to each other in this franchise, which is great. I think something that also really resonates with the queer community is the concept of found family, because a lot of us end up with found family based on our own troubled home experiences. And so this idea of people coming together for a common goal and common purpose and, way that they live their lives is something that very much resonates with the queer experience.
And they live their lives a quarter mile at a time, just like everybody does. So,
and, they actually take huge leaps in these films. I really think, as you've said before, 5, where you've had some amusing nicknames for it, which I've appreciated. But I think one of the things I love about 5 and 4 is that's really where the refinement begins, and they sort of shed the as I called it, the Rush, the Paula Abdul music video of it, and zeroed in on the core elements that matter. Like, how do you feel defining these as an action movie, Joes?
I think that there's a real decided shift between 3 and 4, and 4 is kind of a movie in transition in a lot of ways, but they go from being car movies to action movies. And I think not really caring about cars, I'm so sorry, caring more about action movies, but also entering at 5, where it's like a full-blown, like one of the best action movies of the decade. I think, like, objectively, 5 and 6 are both like top 10-ish action movies of the decade. They're just amazing. Like, there is a real shift from one type of movie to another that kind of puts people off, but also brings other people in. And I feel like whatever you're looking for, whether it's cars or family or action or this or that or whatever, there's something there for you. And I think if you are coming to it from an action movie standpoint, they're amazing.
Yeah, I was going to say that as much as I think about them as being action movies, I think that as we progress, they're more like the relationships mean more to us. That's what we spend most of our time talking about on the show, is how like the interplay between everyone and the dynamics that they have. So as much as if you'd like them because they're action movies, you can like them because they're dramas too. And if you like cars, there's cars in them as well. So.
Yeah, we joke about how we like check out during the action scenes because we've seen like how many times can we see a car jump out of a plane, but we're like, what did Mia say? Like, what's that poster on? Like, is that an oversized fork and knife on the wall of Toretto's marketing? Like, what is like? It's just the weird character details that we care about. Like, the action's great, but it's more than just that.
And I think one of the things that I love the most about Fast and Furious was the wealth of material, and the way the wealth of material was, as long as you move your hands a lot, people keep looking. The wealth of material that you guys explore with Fast and the Furious, and that, I found out there's the short films, and like, I actually think one of the most fascinating things is Vin Diesel directed a short film in the Fast and the Furious franchise, which is probably the best 10 minutes of the franchise.
And it's super important.
Yeah.
It's very important to continuity, too, if you think about it.
Yeah.
And it essentially establishes the value of each character as someone important for me. Now, I would love to hear everybody's reaction, because that center idea that marriages, especially starting in 4, 5, 6, 7, this idea of love as a central figure that keeps you going, it's sort of your NOS boost, right? I'm really fascinated how these went from car movies to kind of like romances as well
Love
in a lot of
stories,
ways. Yeah. Now, how do you guys feel as guys who came to the vroom vroom guys, car action movie? And Rachel, you were coaxed into this, being told that women will eventually be treated better. How do you guys feel about the fact that for all that these are action car movies, The French Connection gone mad, these are also romances about complex relationships?
Yeah, I mean, there's something special about the relationships, both the bromance, if that's a word, that between Dom and Brian. There's the story between Brian and Mia early in the franchise, but the real love story is Brian and Dom. It's modeled after the Point Break love story. It's the Keanu Swayze, and I mean, how can you not be in love with both of them, really? So there's more to it. There's what you see, and then there's what you see, if that makes sense.
Oh, I absolutely get that. Yeah.
I like that you do get those dynamics, and I also like the relationship dynamics of how they interact because they are one family. You know what I mean? So there is some kind of play around that where the O'Connor family kind of has to join the Toretto family and these type of things. But as a guy that was in it for the car movies, once you establish relationships with the characters yourself as a fan, then you want to see them be happy or, find love and stuff like that. So that, opens it up. And it wasn't really a hard transition for a lot of the people that I know that are fans to see this happen.
How about you, Rachel? How did you feel about watching the rise of the Fast Furious female?
In the sense of them being in loving relationships or just in general?
Yeah, in loving relationships and not just sex objects, but rather people with value that are treated as people, not a really tight pair of pants.
I mean, that's how life is, most people are going to at one point in their life find someone that will be their ride or die, and you want these characters that you've grown so attached to get that. And maybe you introduce their say Giselle, you introduce her as is she good, is she bad, is she gonna go be with Dom first, but then she and they find each other and just it's so cute. You want that for them.
Speaking of wanting it for them, I want Han for me, but that's neither here nor there. Han is the best character in the franchise. Han is my ride or die. Okay, so But speaking of the expansiveness of the franchise, something I haven't personally gotten to yet is how the franchise continues to grow past what I've seen. I've seen 7, which was a lot of fun, but I know that 7 kind of rolls into 8, kind of rolls into Hobbs and Shaw. And, the truth of it is that 7 had to deal with a tragic loss.
Mm-hmm.
And, no matter how they chose to handle it, it was a really beautiful way to respect an actor who had made a lot of people very happy with this role and had brought a lot of people a lot of joy. And so, no matter what, the loss of Paul Walker was a tremendous thing for this cast and this creative team to have to work through. But I think to have built a franchise more diverse and more inclusive out of it is something that truly reflects the positivity that Fast and Furious is meant to represent. How do you feel about this very open world, almost like Breath of the Wild, all the options in front of you, Fast and Furious future?
We just talked about on our most recent episode about the difficulties, right, of adapting to that on the fly and what you say, it didn't really affect the franchise as opposed to what you want to say, which is it ruined everything or we had to change everything. But I think, like Rachel was saying about, that's what life is like. Life throws you curveballs sometimes. And if art imitates life and these kind of reflect family and new family and found family, then the way things change, the way things you have to adapt to things, I think they recovered in a nice way. And I can't wait for you guys to see these next 2 movies and then for all of us to see beyond that.
Yeah.
I like the trajectory and the openness that they leave themselves, and we've seen that they establish that they're open to growing and open to being more diverse and expanding, and so that's very positive for me, knowing that they keep adding stuff like the cartoon for kids and the video game and all this extra content on the thing and becoming more open. That's awesome, and that's something that I want as a fan of the Fast and the Furious franchise.
Well, and as a fan, I love that you brought up the video game because the video game and Spy Racers both did pretty huge things, not just in giving Kurt Russell a woman of color counterpart in the cartoon, which, by the way, best character on the show, bar none.
She
And
better be in the Letty led all women's movie. I want her in it so badly.
I need Ms. Nowhere everywhere. And not only did we get Ms. Nowhere and Echo, who Echo can kick everybody's ass in the Spy Racers cartoon, but the video game had some pretty significant advancements in terms of visibility. If I'm not mistaken, there was either non-binary or genderqueer option in the selection process for the new video game.
Yeah, so the video game blends characters we already know. So there's Dom and there's Letty and there's Roman, but they also introduce new characters that are modeled after real life actors. And there's Asia Kate Dillon plays Cam, and they're a non-binary actor in real life and in the game as well. And I think it's just amazing to see this thing that is so, like, you think car culture and you think that you have a certain mentality of what that fan looks like or thinks about or whatever. And then for this to be like, oh, like this is so wildly progressive and so cool. And we were just blown away by how amazing it was.
And how important it was to the director of the game. We spoke to him about this, and he said it was a really big mission of his to be more inclusive. And in his play that he got to do, to write the story of the game, that this was one of his objectives when he was creating it. And that was really cool to hear.
Kevo, I know that a way to pull you in is queer representation. I know that gets your attention. And Rachel, I have to imagine, as a woman who has hung in through this franchise for so long, you must be so happy to see like you said, Ms. Nowhere better be in the Letty movie.
Yeah.
How do you
Cam can come too if they want to.
Yeah. Right?
Totally up to them, but I would take it.
So how do you guys feel about seeing this further evolution and further representation of yourselves in a lot of ways?
You want to go first?
Sure. It's awesome. I mean, women can be more than just either the badass or the sexy lamppost, as you like to say. But I mean, it's like women can be powerful and smart and not just a love interest, but also instrumental in making sure this plan goes through without a hitch, And I think it'll be really important in the Letty-led movie to have it be only women that are saving the world. I think it's really important to see that.
And on the opposite end of that, I really appreciated the second season of Spy Racers having a female villain and having her be someone who is competent and very entertaining.
Listen up, Uggos.
Ciao, Uggos. It's important to play both sides of that. There's strong women of all types.
Yep. Well, we do get a female villain in 8 also.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, can't even make me happier and more excited. Now, guys, I want to say that with the future, I can only imagine space is next, right? But
that's the rumor.
Yep.
You guys brought me here, promised me a good time. But what I walked away with is seeing not just bad representation at first, which honestly is the truth, but I saw a crew that wanted to learn and provide representation in an important way. I saw men of color go from background figures to dynamic heroes. I saw women go from essentially, concubines to conquerors. Yeah. And I'm really excited to see where this future goes forward. Now, guys, I want to get your hopes for the future and your handles and social media so everybody can find you to keep talking from with you. Joey, talk to me. Future of Fast Fury.
I just want more, I want closure. I want things to combine. I think we're heading toward an end game, the end of the runway, the world's longest runway, a 20-year-old franchise that we are reaching the end now. And I think that they're setting it up in a way that is very special. And I think that the future is bright.
And where can everybody find you online?
I'm at Soul Popped just about everywhere. You can find the podcast, anywhere you get podcasts, or at cageclub.me.
Brilliant. Rachel, what do you hope to see for the future, and where can everybody find you?
I hope they continue on this great path they're going on. I don't think the franchise started out as trying to be non-inclusive, and it's great to see them fixing themselves as they go. I think it's awesome. I'm on social media as Rachel Thursday on pretty much everything, so come check me out.
I love it. Kevo, tell me about the queerness you hope to see in the Fast Furious future and where everybody can find you.
Gay men. That's what I want for the future. You know, I really appreciate that the character of Frosty has 2 gay moms. That was really awesome. But like if you're only going to include lesbians on a franchise like this, it's probably for titillation. I'm not a big fan of that. And you can find me at Kevo Risse, which is right there on my name.
I have been Nico Action at Nico Action on everything social media, and I hope to see Tony and Dom hug. Now, Joe, one of our 2 hosts that started the whole thing, tell us your hopes for the future and where we can find you.
I'm just completely open to anything that they do. I think they're moving in the right direction, so I'm just a blank slate here. I'll take anything that they'll give me. You can find me at JoeyD_ on Twitter and Instagram, and always find us on our pages. Joey will tell you about them.
Yeah,
absolutely. I really love your low standards. Joey, just remind us the name of the podcast and where we can find it.
Too Fast, Too Forever, the Fast and Furious podcast, anywhere you get podcasts or at cageclub.me.
Guys, thank you so much. It's been amazing being fast, furious, and online with you guys. Thank you so much to NYCC, Read Pop, THQ, and the amazing folks at cageclub.me for bringing us this amazing content. Guys, thank you so much and have a great night. Vroom, vroom.
Thanks.